The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as delegates from 17 different species gathered around a massive crystalline table. At the head sat Chancellor Vex, his scaled hide gleaming under the artificial stars that dotted the chamber ceiling. His yellow eyes swept across the assembled aliens, each one representing worlds that had learned to fear a single species. Humans! Order! Order! Vex's voice boomed through the universal translators embedded in every seat. We are here to discuss the situation. A ripple of uncomfortable silence followed. Everyone knew what situation he meant. The Terrans had been quiet for exactly 3 solar cycles now. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that preceded storms capable of reshaping entire star systems. Ambassador Krill, a spindly creature from the insectoid Ginny Collective, clicked his mandibles nervously. Perhaps we should consider reopening diplomatic channels? The humans have always been reasonable. Laughter, cold, bitter laughter echoed from the shadows near the chamber's edge. A figure stepped forward, and every delegate felt their breathing organs constrict with fear. Commander Thane, the only Kratari warrior to have survived a direct encounter with human military forces, and lived to tell about it. His left arm was gone, replaced by a crude mechanical prosthetic that whirred with each movement. Burns covered half his face, a permanent reminder that day 3 cycles ago. Reasonable. Thane's voice was like grinding metal. You want to know about human reasonableness? Let me tell you a story. He moved to the center of the chamber, his remaining eye fixing on each delegate in turn. 3 cycles ago, I commanded the most feared battle fleet in the Outer Rim. 50 ships, 20,000 warriors. We had conquered 12 systems without losing a single vessel. His mechanical fingers clenched into a fist. Then we made one mistake. Just one. The chamber held its breath. We captured a human cargo vessel. Standard procedure, you understand. Board, interrogate, strip anything valuable, space the crew. Simple, clean, efficient. Thane's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. But this cargo ship, it wasn't carrying goods. Ambassador Krill leaned forward despite himself. What was it carrying? Thane turned to face him, and the insectoid immediately regretted asking. Children. Human children. 43 of them, ranging from 5 to 16 standard years. They were being evacuated from a research station that had suffered containment breach. The color drained from every delegate's face, or whatever passed for color in their respective anatomies. Even Chancellor Vex felt his scales pale. My lieutenant, a young warrior named Zek, he thought it would be amusing to make an example, wanted to show the adult humans what happened when they resisted. Thane's voice cracked. He grabbed one of the children, a little girl with golden hair. Couldn't have been more than 7 years old. The silence in the chamber became suffocating. The moment his claws touched her, Thane shook his head. I've been in 1,000 battles. I've seen warriors face impossible odds with courage, but I have never, ever seen anything like what happened to those humans when they realized what Zek intended. He began pacing, his mechanical arm whirring with agitation. The mother, a small woman, maybe came up to my chest. She looked at Zek with these eyes, these absolutely calm, terrifying eyes, and she said 5 words that still wake me from sleep cycles. What did she say? Chancellor Vex found himself asking despite his better judgment. Thane stopped pacing. She said, You just made a mistake. The commander's laugh was hollow, broken. A mistake. That's what she called it. Not a threat. Not a promise of revenge. Just a mistake. Within 6 minutes, every Kratari warrior on that ship was dead except me. Not killed by weapons. Not killed by technology. Killed by parents using whatever they could find. Kitchen utensils. Maintenance tools. Their bare hands. His voice rose. A human father strangled 3 of my best warriors with a length of cable while his wife held their child. A grandmother, barely able to walk without assistance, somehow managed to electrocute 2 more using exposed wiring. The delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. But the worst part, Thane continued, the part that still haunts me was how organized they became. Within minutes, they had a plan. The adults formed defensive positions around the children, while others systematically hunted down every Qatari on the ship. They moved like a single organism, anticipating each other's actions without a word spoken. Ambassador Krill's clicking had become rapid, nervous. Surely your fleet responded. Thane's remaining I fixed on him. Oh, they tried. But you see, humans are very good at learning. Very, very good. While they were cleaning house on the cargo vessel, they were also studying our technology. By the time my surviving ships moved to assist, the humans had figured out our shield frequencies, our weapon signatures, even our communication protocols. Impossible, Chancellor Vex interjected. No species learns that quickly. Tell that to the 49 ships full of dead Qatari floating in the void. Thane snapped. The humans didn't just fight back. They adapted. Every tactic we tried, they countered within minutes. Every advantage we thought we had, they turned against us. The chamber erupted in nervous chatter, but Thane raised his mechanical hand for silence. You want to know the truly terrifying part? When it was over, when my entire fleet was nothing but debris, the human mother found me floating in an escape pod. I was wounded, helpless. She could have killed me easily. His voice dropped to barely audible. Instead, she patched my wounds and sent me home with a message. What message? Vex whispered. Thane's scarred face twisted into what might have been a smile. She said, "Tell your people that humans don't start fights, but we finish them. And if anyone ever touches our children again, we won't just come for the one responsible. We'll come for everyone." The silence stretched like a physical thing, pressing down on the assembled delegates. That was 3 cycles ago. Thane continued. Since then, the humans have been quiet, building, planning. Their colonies have gone dark to outside contact. Their trade ships have stopped running regular routes. Their diplomatic corps recalled every ambassador. His mechanical fingers drummed against his leg. They're preparing for something. Something big. Ambassador Krill found his voice. Surely you're being paranoid. They're probably just grieving, processing the trauma. Thane laughed, a sound like breaking glass. You still don't understand, do you? Humans don't grieve like other species. They don't process trauma by retreating and healing. They process it by making sure it never happens again. To anyone, ever. Chancellor Vex leaned forward. What are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you what's coming. Thane moved to the chamber's main display, activating a holographic star map. 18 months ago, this was a human sphere of influence. 47 systems, maybe 100 billion individuals. The map showed a modest cluster of stars in the galaxy's outer spiral. The map changed. The human sphere had tripled in size. They're not expanding through colonization. Thane explained. They're expanding through alliances. Species that had never spoken to each other are suddenly working together under human coordination. The Altarians have shared their cloaking technology. The Zentori have opened their manufacturing systems. Even the Isolationist Vegan Collective has joined what they're calling the Protection Compact. Protection from what? Ambassador Krill asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. From us. Thane gestured to the assembled delegates. From anyone who thinks harming a human child is acceptable behavior. From anyone who believes might makes right in their corner of the galaxy. The chamber exploded into chaos. Delegates shouted over each other, some demanding immediate military action, others calling for emergency diplomatic initiatives. Through it all, Chancellor Vex sat quietly, his yellow eyes fixed on the star map. Finally, he raised a scaled hand for silence. Commander Thane, in your professional opinion, what are our options? Thane's scarred face was grim. We have exactly 2 options, Chancellor. We can surrender unconditionally and hope they're feeling merciful. He paused. Or we can fight and lose everything. Those are hardly options at all, Vex protested. No, Thane agreed. They're not. But that's what happens when you touch a human child. You don't get good options anymore. You get consequences. The star map flickered, and new information appeared. Fleet movements, resource allocations, construction projects on a scale that dwarfed anything the galaxy had seen since the ancient builders had vanished millennia ago. How long do we have? Chancellor Vex asked quietly. Thane studied the data flowing across the display. Based on these patterns, maybe 6 months. Maybe less if they decide to accelerate their timeline. His remaining I met the Chancellor's gaze. They're coming, Vex. All of them. Every human in the galaxy. And everyone who's decided that protecting children is more important than politics. Ambassador Krill's clicking had become frantic. Surely we can negotiate? Find some middle ground. With whom? Thane asked. The human government that's been systematically replaced by what they call citizen councils? The military commanders who've handed authority to the families of the children who died? The diplomats who've been recalled to serve as logistics coordinators for the largest military buildup in galactic history. He shook his head. You still don't understand. The humans aren't angry. Anger is an emotion that burns hot and fast. What they're feeling, it's much worse. They're determined, and a determined human is the most dangerous force in the universe. Chancellor Vex slumped in his chair, the weight of realization crushing down on him. What have we done? We, Thane corrected, haven't done anything, but one of our member species decided that human children were acceptable casualties in their expansion efforts. And now we all get to live with the consequences of that decision. The chamber fell silent again, each delegate lost in contemplation of their own mortality. Outside, the artificial stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the doom that was slowly, inexorably, making its way toward them. There is, Thane said suddenly, one other option. Every head turned toward him. We could try to find Zek. The lieutenant who started this? Chancellor Vex asked. He's dead. You said so yourself. Thane's mechanical hand clenched. I said every warrior on the ship died. I didn't say where they died. His scarred face twisted into something that might have been hope. What if I told you that one escape pod made it out? That somewhere in the galaxy, there's a Qatari warrior who knows exactly what happens when you touch a human child. The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. If we could find him, Chancellor Vex said slowly, deliver him to the humans. It might buy us enough time to evacuate the core worlds, Thane finished. Might convince them that justice has been served. Or, Ambassador Krill interjected, it might convince them that we're all complicit in what happened. Thane nodded grimly. That's the risk, but it's the only chance we have left. He looked around the chamber one final time. Because in 6 months, every species in this room is going to learn what I learned 3 cycles ago. Which is? Chancellor Vex asked. Thane's remaining eye gleamed with remembered terror. That there is no force in the galaxy more dangerous than a human who's decided that someone needs to pay for hurting a child. And they never, ever forget. The session ended with no resolution, no plan, no hope, just a growing certainty that somewhere in the darkness between stars, humanity was coming. And this time, they weren't coming to negotiate 0.6 months later. The first human ships appeared at the edge of Qatari space. They didn't announce themselves. They didn't demand surrender. They didn't issue ultimatums or make grand proclamations about justice and revenge. They simply materialized in the void like vengeful ghosts, their hulls dark as the space between stars. Admiral Korax, Supreme Commander of the Qatari Defense Fleet, watched the tactical display with growing horror. 300 human vessels, each one larger than anything in his fleet. But size wasn't what terrified him. It was a silence. Sir, his communications officer reported, voice trembling. They're not responding to any hails. Not even automated acknowledgments. Keep trying, Korax ordered, though he knew it was futile. These weren't soldiers coming to war. These were parents coming for justice. And parents didn't negotiate with the things that threatened their children. The bridge's main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at the interior of one of the human vessels. But this wasn't any military ship Korax had ever seen. The corridors were lined with pictures. Thousands of them. Children's faces smiling from the walls like a memorial to innocence lost. And walking through those corridors were humans. Not soldiers in uniform, but ordinary people, mothers and fathers, grandparents and siblings. They wore simple clothes and carried weapons that looked more like tools than military hardware. Their faces showed no anger, no rage, no bloodlust. They looked like parents heading to a school meeting. That terrified Korax more than any army ever could. "Sir," the tactical officer called out, "they're launching something." On the display, small objects detached from the human ships. Not missiles or fighters. Pods. Hundreds of them, drifting toward the Qatari fleet, like seeds on a stellar wind. Defensive positions. Korax shouted, all weapons hot. But before his fleet could respond, the pods began broadcasting on every frequency simultaneously. The voice that emerged was that of a woman, calm and measured. "My name is Sarah Chun. 3 months ago, your people murdered my daughter. Her name was Emma. She was 7 years old. She liked dinosaurs and wanted to be a veterinarian when she grew up." Korax felt his heart skip. This wasn't a military transmission. This was a mother talking about her dead child. "This message is for the warrior who called himself Zek. We know you survived. We know you're hiding somewhere in the outer systems, probably thinking you're safe." Sarah's voice never wavered. "You're not." The pods reached the Qatari ships and attached themselves to the hulls. Not weapons, speakers. But this message isn't just for Zek. It's for everyone who thinks what happened to Emma and the other children was acceptable. Everyone who believes that might makes right. Everyone who has ever looked at a child and seen a target instead of a future. Throughout the Qatari fleet, crew members were abandoning their posts, not to flee but to listen. The woman's voice carried a weight that transcended language barriers and species differences. "We didn't come here for revenge," Sarah continued. "Revenge is what you take when someone hurts you personally. This isn't personal anymore. This is about making sure no child, anywhere in the galaxy, ever has to be afraid of monsters like you." The tactical displays showed more human ships arriving. Not hundreds now, thousands. Each one broadcasting the voice of another parent, another family member, another person whose world had been shattered by violence against children. "We've been preparing for this moment for 6 months," Sarah's voice continued. "Not preparing weapons or strategies or battle plans. Preparing ourselves. Because what we're about to do isn't warfare. It's extermination." Admiral Korax found his voice. "Open a channel. All frequencies." "Sir, do it." The communication officer's hands shook as he complied. "Channel open, sir." "Human vessels," Korax said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "This is Admiral Korax of the Qatari Defense Fleet. We wish to negotiate terms of surrender." Silence. Then Sarah's voice returned, and this time there was something like pity in it. "Admiral, you still don't understand. There are no terms. There is no surrender. There's only what happens next." The human ships began moving, not in formation but like a family walking together. Coordinated without being military. Purposeful without being rushed. "You see, Admiral, we've learned something about your species over the past 6 months. You're not evil. You're not inherently violent. You're just broken. Your entire culture is built around the idea that strength equals worth, that taking what you want is natural, that other species exist for your convenience." Korax watched his tactical display as his own ships began powering down their weapons, not on his orders. His crews were making the decision themselves, one by one. But here's what you never understood about humans. We don't see strength the way you do. Our strength doesn't come from what we can take. It comes from what we protect. On every ship in the Qatari fleet, crew members were setting aside their weapons and walking toward the observation ports to watch the human vessels approach. "And when something threatens what we protect," Sarah's voice continued, "we don't just fight back. We adapt. We learn. We become whatever we need to become to eliminate the threat." The first human ship docked with Admiral Korax's flagship. No explosions. No boarding pods fired from rail guns. Just a gentle, almost tender connection between the two vessels. "Admiral." Sarah's voice came through the comm system now. Close and personal. "I want you to understand something. The humans coming aboard your ship aren't soldiers. They're parents, and they have something to show you." The bridge doors opened, and humans began filing in. They carried no weapons, but each one wore a badge with a child's picture on it. A face, a name, a life cut short. The woman, who must be Saracen, approached Admiral Corax directly. She was smaller than he expected, barely reaching his shoulder, with graying hair and lines around her eyes that spoke of months spent crying. "Admiral," she said quietly, "I want you to look at something." She held up a small device that projected a hologram, a little girl with dark hair and bright eyes, laughing as she chased something out of frame. "This is Emma. This is what your lieutenant decided wasn't worth protecting." Sarah's voice was steady, but tears streamed down her face. Do you know what her last words were? Corax found he couldn't speak. She said, "Mommy, why is a scary man being mean?" That's what she called Zek when he grabbed her. The scary man. Sarah's voice cracked. She didn't understand why someone would want to hurt her. She was 7, Admiral, 7 years old, and she still believed that grown-ups were supposed to protect children. Around the bridge, Qatari crew members were removing their weapons and placing them on the floor. Not in surrender. In shame. "We spent 6 months looking for Zek," Sarah continued. 6 months tracking down every survivor, every witness, every piece of evidence. And do you know what we found? She gestured, and another human stepped forward carrying a stasis pod. Inside, Admiral Corax could see the unmistakable form of a Qatari warrior, alive but unconscious. "We found him hiding on a mining station in the Outer Rim," Sarah said, "living under a false name, trying to forget what he'd done. But humans don't forget, Admiral. We remember every child, every face, every life cut short by people who think might makes right." She touched the stasis pod gently. "Zek is going to stand trial. Not a military tribunal. Not a political proceeding. A trial conducted by the parents of every child who died that day. And when it's over, when justice has been served, we're going to do something that might surprise you." "What?" Corax managed to whisper. "We're going to forgive you." The words hit him like a physical blow. "What?" Sarah nodded to the other humans, and they began connecting devices to the Qatari ship's communication system. Not Zek. Never Zek. What he did was unforgivable. But the rest of you? You're not monsters, Admiral. You're just scared, broken people who never learned that there's another way to live. The devices activated, and suddenly every screen on the ship was showing images from human colonies. Not military installations or government buildings. Schools, playgrounds, parks where children of a dozen different species played together under the watchful eyes of human families. This is what we're fighting for, Admiral. Not conquest, not dominance, just the right for children to grow up safe. All children, even Qatari children. Corax stared at the screens in disbelief. "You would protect our young?" "We already are," Sarah said simply. "Every Qatari colony world has human families volunteering as teachers, doctors, and caregivers. They've been there for months, Admiral, protecting your children while we hunted the man who killed ours." The bridge fell silent, except for the sound of grown Qatari warriors crying. "But this war isn't over," Sarah continued, "because Zek wasn't the only one. Across the galaxy, there are others like him, beings who think children are acceptable casualties, species that prey on the weak because they can." She looked directly into Admiral Corax's eyes. "We're going to find them all, every last one, and we're going to stop them, not through conquest or domination, but by showing them what they could become instead." "How?" Corax asked. Sarah smiled, and for the first time, it reached her eyes. "The same way we're going to rebuild the Qatari military, Admiral, by teaching you that true strength comes from protecting others, not dominating them." She handed him a data pad. "These are the specifications for new ships. Human designed, Qatari built, jointly crewed. Vessels designed not for conquest, but for protection. Your people have the finest warriors in the galaxy, Admiral. Imagine what they could accomplish if they fought to protect children instead of terrorize them." Corax looked at the specifications and felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. "Hope, the choice is yours," Sarah said. You can cling to the old ways, the ways that led to Emma's death and your fleet's destruction. Or you can help us build something better. A galaxy where children can grow up safe, regardless of their species or homeworld. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Admiral? Zek's trial begins in 2 days. You're welcome to attend, not as his commander, but as someone who needs to understand what justice looks like when it's guided by love instead of anger. As the humans departed, Admiral Korak stood alone on his bridge, surrounded by his shamefaced crew and the lingering echoes of a 7-year-old girl's laughter. 6 months ago, a Qatari warrior had made one mistake. He had touched a human child. Today, the galaxy began to change forever, and somewhere in a vast expanse of space, other predators who preyed on the innocent felt a chill run through their dark hearts as word spread of what happened to those who hurt children. The humans were coming, not as conquerors or destroyers, but as protectors, and they would never, ever stop.